Yo, what's going on, guys? It's your boy, MotoManDan, and I wanted to take this opportunity to talk to you about a movie I just saw. It was the Super Mario Bros. Movie, the new one. If you're not familiar, they've definitely been pushing it out pretty hardcore. They had, Bowser, Mario, Luigi, Princess Peach. There are going to be spoilers in what I talk about, but I just want to do a quick movie review because I definitely have a lot of thoughts on this, and I don't know if it was just me, but it seemed like it was maybe overhyped for what it delivered. And it didn't really feel like a cash grab necessarily, but I think it definitely played in the nostalgia for middle-aged men from the age of 30, 35, maybe it's probably single. It was trying to target them as well as maybe a younger audience. That's kind of what I felt like. But yeah, let me give you my opinion on what I think it did well and what I think it could have done better. So in the beginning, there's a lot of references. There's the rap that they do, which is a direct reference to the TV show that they did, where you had a live action snippet, a rap intro, and then you had the cartoon, and then you had the live action like afterwards, which is a very common kind of theme that they did in the 80s. I want to say Fat Albert did that as well. I don't think so though. I think Fat Albert was fully cartoon. But there were other cartoons that were out there in the late 80s, early 90s that did that sort of thing. Now in the 1990 they made a Super Mario Bros. Movie. And they even paid homage to that, which I was very surprised. And that is with their vehicle breaking down and them still having to get to a job, which is exactly what happened in the beginning of the Super Mario, or at some point in the Super Mario Bros. Movie in 1990. Plus, the fact that it happened like under a construction zone of them going into, Koopa Land or into the Mushroom Kingdom, basically. There were, of course, the 1990s iteration, the live action film, did take a lot of creative liberties in describing Bowser and stuff, and they really kind of separated themselves from the video game because they weren't making an animated series or an animated movie. They were making something live action that's tangible that people could relate to and see characters and stuff in person form, I guess. So I enjoyed the Easter eggs and stuff. I think maybe some of the nostalgia was maybe over nostalgicized. I don't know if that's a word. I think there was maybe a little bit too much nostalgia. Like somebody wrote down the top 25 things that people like about Mario, and they were like, we have to include all of these things. I think it was a little bit too much. And I think it helped kind of ruin the pace of the movie because they were trying to add too much to it. But overall, I guess I should start with the rating, and this might be unpopular opinion. 6.5 out of 10 for adults, even adults who grew up on Mario. And an 8 out of 10. And an 8 out of 10 for children. I think children probably would like it more than adults, but I think I got to give it a 6.5 out of 10 for me personally. There are character arcs that didn't really make sense. There's things that happened to characters that didn't make sense, and it seemed like it was a little bit forced. It wasn't as much of an adventure, and people have choices and needing each other, but it was more of like, hey, we're all just happen to be here at the same time. Let's just like do this thing, right? There wasn't much of a sense of urgency, except for a few of the characters that really made sense. So I'll go ahead and start with what I liked about the characters and the stories that I liked as well. I think that Toad was perfectly cast. I think that Keegan Michael Key, who did the voice actor for Toad, I think he did a really phenomenal job. I think Toad was in the perfect position to be the comedy relief that everybody else would have needed, right? I think he's a perfect position for that. I think that Peach was well casted. I don't know, perfectly casted. I don't know who else I would have chosen. I think she did a really good job. And I think the character also did pretty well. There was definitely, you could definitely feel a sense of urgency of not being urgent to being urgent. So yeah, definitely, I think Peach was was well written. I think her story was good, and the fact that she did go up to marry Bowser, that sort of thing was good as well. I think maybe there could have been a few minor adjustments to that, but I definitely think that was a good idea. She may have even, I think maybe even if they would have discussed that being as like a last effort of her trying to marry Bowser, not realizing that Bowser actually wants to marry her, I think that would have been even better, because she would be like, oh, you do want to marry me. That's weird. I was thinking about the same thing. And then she could play into it more a little bit. Because she's obviously going to, not marry him. So I think that maybe that would be the only slight tweak difference that I would have liked to see from a story perspective. Is it adds to the realization that Bowser likes her and she just doesn't know it. Nobody knows it. Bowser, I think, was probably perfect. I think the casting for him was really, really good. Jack Black is a very good choice for Bowser. And I love the fact that the Bowser comes off as very serious, but at the same time, he's taken very seriously by his followers. His followers are very cult-like, and that's something that you'd normally depict as evil, is a cult, right? Just look at something like Nixium, something relatively evil, or somebody relatively evil that other people worship, because they are in a cult. That's just what they do. And I think that when Bowser took the star, it was very raw and it was very powerful and very evil of him to do that. He destroyed a civilization in order to get power. That's him to a T. So you right off the bat, right out of the gate, you definitely see Bowser at his full strength and at his full character. But then you see the part of him actually in love with Peach, but his subjects don't know it. So he told his subjects, we're going to go here and destroy them. But what he actually wants to do is marry Peach. And his followers, his subjects, are all for destroying things. They love it. They're like, this is our life. This is what we do. But then whenever he slips up and tells them that he actually loves Peach and he wants to marry them, they're like, what? They don't understand what that means. And he's like, well, I mean, in order to, very, very much like a cult leader that has to backtrack on what he says and try to over explain what it is that he wants, and what his followers should believe. Bowser plays that really well. So I think that character was very well written. I think the story arc was done really well. And I absolutely loved all of the people who showed up to his wedding. A lot of good, in Bowser's Castle, a lot of really good, homages to it. A lot of Easter eggs, I should say, that weren't in the way, because you could have put anybody at the wedding, but they chose to put a lot of Easter eggs at the wedding, which is a very good idea for Easter egg hunting. I think I would have liked to see Bowser on a cart. I would have loved to see Bowser on a cart on Rainbow Road, coming up behind everybody else, with the sort of mentality of you might have to do it right yourself if nobody else can do it right but yourself. And so he becomes self-reliant as he is an evil person, an evil leader. He just doesn't trust his followers to be able to complete the task, and so he goes in to do it himself. Oftentimes you see that with evil masters, is that they send their henchmen to do their bidding, their henchmen fail, and they say, if you want it right the first time, do it yourself, and then they go and do it, and they typically fail as well, which I think would have also worked for Bowser in his personality. But it probably wasn't necessary. I think the Rainbow Road thing was just a little, it was interesting for sure. But yeah, I don't know. It was interesting for sure. Yeah, I'll say that. I just think that the cart thing didn't matter as much. Unless they would have introduced carts before and had another cart scene, which I think they should have done, which brings me to my next point. So those three, I think, were really well done. I think Bowser, Peach, and Toad were really well done. Now let's get to everybody else. I think that they had too many comedians trying to play in this movie. Obviously, Jack Black is not just a comedian. He, also a singer-songwriter, and he can play serious roles, like Poe, for example, who might be funny, but his character isn't supposed to be funny. He just happens to not be the same as everybody else. And that makes him break expectations, which can be funny. But I think that, with Keegan-Michael Key being Toad, I think that should have been everybody's comedic relief. And I think Mario and Luigi should have been a bit more serious. I think Luigi maybe played it well, but he was just kind of floating around. The only reason Luigi was there is so that Mario had a reason to be there and to care about Bowser and to exist. And that's just not a very good reason at all, I think. I don't like the way that they were separated through the pipes. It doesn't make sense why you'd have one pipe going into two different pipes. That isn't how pipes work, right? You don't just go in one and randomly come out of another. You go into one and you come out of one. It's just a one-for-one trade. That's the only time in the movie you see that. And they go through pipes quite a few times. So that part I didn't quite get why they would be separated other than the plot. And that's where I think this kind of diverges from what I would have liked to see in the movie is a plot that doesn't rely on happenstance. It doesn't rely on, and to be honest, I don't even know if Peach needed Mario. Like, one of the Kongs could have escaped and played Mario's part, and like, she didn't even need him, other than her own, like, it's like somebody to play off of, I guess. But it just felt like Mario didn't need to be there. Luigi didn't need to be there. The Kongs maybe needed to be there, like, just to be there to be like, I don't know, something to fight off the Koopas, which didn't matter anyways because they all got captured. So, except for Donkey Kong and Mario, who just happened to get away. And so anyways, definitely a lot of plot armor going on. But what I would have liked to see as far as, I would have liked to have seen Mario and Luigi try to work together with Peach to save her people. Maybe it's their only way back home. Maybe they need something to get back home, and they don't know what it is. Or maybe Peach is somebody from a missing poster back in Brooklyn, and they're supposed to find her, or they're not supposed to find her, but they just happen to know that she's missing, and they're like, oh, well, we know who your parents are. And she's like, well, I can't leave these people. And they're like, okay, well, maybe we can take you back, but we'll help save your people, or I don't know, something, anything. I just don't like the way that it was, that they were just, the whole reason Mario needed to go to Bowser was because of Luigi, who also just happened to fall through a different pipe hole and end up with Bowser. And it just, it just doesn't seem like there would be, I guess there would be a lot of urgency, but it just didn't seem like that was the right choice for the storyline for Mario. When Peach and Mario go over to the Kong Kingdom, right, the Jungle Kingdom, to meet with Cranky Kong, I'm assuming at this point Peach doesn't know who Cranky Kong is. She just knows that they have a leader, because the ape that opens the door says, what do you want? And she says, I want to meet the king. And he says, okay. I would have loved to see that play out differently. I would have loved for her to knock, say, I want to talk to your king. He says no, and closes the door. And then you could have her pull out a mushroom, because she is Peach after all. She has mushrooms. She's in Mushroom Kingdom. Pull out a mushroom where Mario can grow big and jump high. And then he uses that ability, his jumping ability, to climb the wall, or to scale the wall and jump from side to side, like a platformer. Get to the top, bring her and Toad up, giving him a purpose to be there, other than he's just following along because he wants his brother. But to actually give him a purpose, they get to the top, and then they scale the other side down. As far as we know, Peach doesn't have any vehicles. I don't know how she learned how to ride a motorcycle miraculously. But I think Mario, being from Brooklyn, knowing how to drive, knowing how people drive, he could have made a Brooklyn reference about, bad drivers and stuff. They should have stolen a cart after the Kong told them no. They should have stolen a cart, and then have like a bit of a police chase where they're driving, and then you got, carts from the left, carts from the right, carts behind, and they're all trying to get to him and throw him banana peels and stuff. And that's kind of where he first learns how to ride the cart and how to use the items and stuff like that. And then they jump into the Kong. They could have gotten to the same place, but they could have been there much differently than just, we're along for a fun ride that they're going to release in Disney World, and more of a, no is not an answer. It is another obstacle for us to overcome, is not being allowed in. And I think that's how they should have played that out. And then once they get to Cranky Kong, let's talk about him. I don't like the character Cranky Kong. In my opinion, the way that I would have liked to see it done is apes are unintelligent. Cranky Kong is the intelligent version of the ape. And being intelligent, he can conceptualize consequences, right? And he can think about the future and think about plan ahead for things, and have a risk management mindset as well as a leader. What's best for his people, what's best for the everybody as a whole, and come to the conclusion himself that it would be a good idea if they joined. But he doesn't want to say it because he wants something in return. Maybe he wants part of Mushroom Kingdom, or maybe he wants free access to the mushrooms, or something. He wants something in return that he's going to give his army. And sometimes it's just entertainment. He says, "Yes, I want you to entertain me," or he wants what's best for his kid, and he wants his kid, Donkey Kong, to kind of grow from from a fight. Maybe his kid, similar to in Madagascar, how the lion never actually was a real lion, and when he went to go be with his parents, he had to learn how to be a lion. That kind of thing, right? It could have been Donkey Kong doesn't really fight anybody. He's not a bad guy, an evil guy, or anything, and he just happens to be a really good guy. But Cranky Kong needs him to be a strong leader and needs him to be able to toughen up and and hurt things that are living. And so then he has to kind of battle with this inner my dad wants me to do something that I don't want to do, but I need to do it. This sort of inner conflict, instead of just being a sort of like, the football dad wants his son to play football, but the son wants to dance instead and just wants his dad's approval no matter what he does in life. That seemed to be a little bit of the cliche going on, and I didn't like that cliche very much going with that. I also don't think they should have cast Seth Rogen because, again, too many comics, too many comedians doesn't really help the main character, especially when the main character is also a comedian. And his brother, a comedian. So all of the actors they cast for Donkey Kong, Mario, Cranky Kong, and Luigi, I think, maybe weren't the right choice. Maybe Luigi, but the other three, maybe not the right choice. It just didn't feel like Mario was part of the movie other than just needing to be there as a token character, just to be in the movie. It could have been done without him and without Luigi. 100%. They didn't utilize them being Mario and Luigi in any particular way that would have kind of shown them apart from anyone else. But I think if Mario would have taken the cart, scaled the wall, taken the cart, done those sorts of things, then I think that there's definitely some merit there. I think that Donkey Kong should have been a very serious person, a very serious character that deals with inner turmoil of having to hurt things and not having to hurt things, while at the same time having to fight with this inner turmoil of nature, being that he's an ape, so he acts upon impulse, and the fact that his father is an intellectual, he also needs to battle that with being an intellectual and what that means, as he might become the next leader. And so I think there could have been like two different inner turmoils of Donkey Kong being shown, and you could almost see it like breaking him. It's like, which one does he choose? And at the end of the movie, he learns how to like encapsulate all of them together to be his own character. I think that would have been a much better character arc than he's just a funny, cringy teenager that just does cringy, funny things. Like I don't know how else to explain Donkey Kong, except for that in the movie. So, yeah, I don't know about that. And then again, Cranky Kong should have been much more intelligent, driven, bargaining, that sort of thing. Instead of just kind of going with the flow and saying, yeah, you need our army. Okay, you just fight my son. You got it. There should have been a lot more give and take. Maybe even a bit more of a serious nature of, Peach being there and him feeling powerful because the princess of Toadstool Kingdom is coming to her, or is coming to him in order to get help. And then he feels more powerful because of that. Something like that. I just think that whole scenario, the whole introduction to Kong, the Jungle Kingdom, Kong's Kingdom, could have been handled differently. I think the fight was pretty good. I don't know. Like, it was pretty, yeah, I guess. The fight was pretty good between Donkey Kong and Mario. I would have loved Mario to just get a power-up mushroom instead of the cat suit, so that way they could have been strength versus strength instead of strength versus speed. I think that would have helped Donkey Kong, kind of come to grips with the fact that maybe he's not the strongest and he needs to be more of an intellectual, like his father, to lead the apes strategically versus by brute force, because he's going to fight with brute force. You can't always win with brute force, as he loses to Mario when Mario takes the power-up mushroom. I think that would have been a beautiful dynamic for him to come to that realization, to grow as a leader. Okay, so then after that, they go through Rainbow Road. Rainbow Road's okay. It was definitely a long scene. It probably needed to be long. Like I said before, I wish Bowser was there to kind of add a little bit of like tension. Yeah, tension's the right word. I think Bowser should have been there to add a little bit of tension, almost like a final boss, like, you know, chomping like a chain chomp, chomping on the end of the Rainbow Road to like devour everything in his path, and they're outracing that while they're trying to battle the other Koopas and stuff at the same time. I think that maybe could have been a really cool dynamic, or he could have had some sort of creature do that for him, like a giant chain chomp, which there are giant chain chomps on the N64 version of Rainbow Road, but they don't show that in the movie. So that could have been a good addition. I think the Rainbow Road idea of crossing, one side to the other would have been really cool. It just doesn't make a lot of sense that she would know about it, but then never have, but not use it, I guess, because they traveled over land and probably over many days, or at least one day, to get to the Jungle Kingdom. So why not just have a cart and just drive there? I don't know. But yeah, I think there could have been some differences for sure with some of those characters. I think that the Kong leadership could have gone from a brute force tactic to a tactical tactic to try and defeat Bowser, to try and help defeat Bowser. They could have tried brute force, realized it doesn't work, just like Donkey Kong fights Mario, realizes with the way that I think that it should have gone. Donkey Kong fights a souped up mushroom powered Mario, loses, realizes strength is not the way to win. Afterwards says something about a rematch. Can't do the rematch because you have to do some other stuff. Maybe Cranky talks to Donkey and says, "Listen, you can't just win with brute force." Then they try to win with brute force against Bowser, and they lose. And then they have to switch it up and be tactical instead. Giving another analogy of brute force, even if you have it, is not always the best option. And that helps, again, solidify the Kong Kingdom and Donkey Kong specifically as a leader of his people, instead of just some goofy, cringy teenager. And so that's why I think that Seth, with the character they were trying to have, I think Seth is a good choice, but I don't think that should have been the character they were trying to have, and therefore I don't think Seth was the right choice for Donkey Kong, because there could have been his own character development and his own, outlook on life and everything. All right, after that, let's see. Bowser has the star. He's making his way to Mushroom Kingdom. He wants to marry Peach, and Peach says no. Again, I think that it would have been more interesting if Peach had considered that option as an alternative. It's the last possible thing to do. Her toads were very, very thoughtful. Obviously very kind and good-hearted people, similar to hobbits, I guess, in a way. And I wish they would have taken some cowardice and turned it into bravery. And I think they could have done that with Luigi. See, Luigi is supposed to be very scared, right? And at the end of the movie, he's supposed to be seen as brave. But I think they could have helped him do that if he would have identified with the toadstools, the toad people, the mushroom people, I guess. If he would have identified with them, and then something could have happened to where he gained strength, they see him being afraid. And then they have to have the courage, maybe the fortitude to say, well, you don't need to be afraid because we're not going to hurt you. They realize that they're not the only ones in this world afraid. He's also afraid. And so then they have to comfort him, and that comforts themselves, to help them battle their own fear of just being afraid because they're small, I guess, or because they don't think that they're good enough. And then I would have loved to see that them kind of helping him, and then him helping them, and each other complementing their fear, and thus, enabling them to become brave. And that could have looked like the Toads trying to take up arms against Bowser and his people, and maybe rigging some of the traps and stuff, or on Rainbow Road, or I don't know, being small and sneaking on to Bowser's ship to try and take over, the ship on Bowser's or something like that. So I think they definitely could have, in a similar situation with the Kongs going from brute to tactical combat, then the Toads with Luigi could have gone from like being scared to being brave, to doing something with a high risk instead of a low risk. Instead of running away, they turn around. Why are we running away? If it's destroyed, it's destroyed, and we have nowhere to go, so we might as well fight for it. Kind of a realization of becoming brave. So then the Toad people become brave. Luigi becomes brave with them. Mario's proud of Luigi. And why would Mario exist? I don't know. I mean, obviously Mario went to go find Luigi. But maybe Mario would be there to just kind of observe Luigi's behavioral traits and realize that this is actually good for Luigi to be in these situations. And maybe he could have fallen in love with Princess Peach as well, I guess. I don't know. I guess the question is never really answered in the original video games as to why Mario's even looking for the princess to begin with. And it's not really answered in the movie either. The idea, I think, around that time frame is a damsel in distress and you have to go rescue her. But obviously that didn't need to happen because Peach was more was better at hand-to-hand combat than Mario was. So she maybe didn't need as much help. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Or Peach could have been slightly different type of ruler, and then Mario kind of completes her as a character. Like, she doesn't have to be, maybe like it's sort of like the Wonder Woman thing where if you have everything, then what's the point? And I think maybe they could have done something like that where she has some sort of a flaw that Mario helps kind of fill the void of what she's been looking for as an individual, and really kind of connects with her on a very personal level. So yeah, that could have happened. Let's see, towards the end of the movie. So yeah, I think the whole Kong thing could have been completely redone, to add more tension, to add more character development, and to have different character dynamics instead of everybody being a jokester. They could have definitely had some more different character dynamics and stuff. Yeah, I'm not too sure about how Mario would have advanced in his, other than seeing how he has an impact on other people. And I guess that could kind of play into what his father said, where he made a remark about how Luigi's following in Mario's footsteps, and it's not a good thing. And then Mario takes that to heart and kind of, internalizes it and does not feel good that his father said that. So I think that maybe he could have seen the impact he's having on other people and how better they're becoming, or at least just the people around him. Maybe he could just be helping the people around him. So he helps Peach become more confident. He helps, Donkey Kong become more of himself, by having to fight him. He helps Luigi become less scared by being there with him. And so then he could just kind of see how he's impacting other people's lives. And that would be his character development, is that his father isn't necessarily, even though, it could be construed as him being a bad influence. It's not that he's a bad influence. It's just that he's an influence, and you can be an influence for good as well as you can be an influence for bad. He felt bad at first, and then he becomes, then he feels good about the influence that he has over other people and with other people, because he's a very supporting person, even though he's, the main character of the story. So yeah, those are some of my thoughts about it. I think overall, that there was just too much nostalgia for it to for it to be at a slower pace, or for them to be able to specifically really work on all of the characters and solidify the characters' personalities. But I think Bowser was the best character in the end. And I think that Mario and Luigi were very forgettable. Unfortunately, especially Luigi. Yes, there was Luigi's Haunted Mansion, the flashlight flashing it on and off and him going into the mansion and stuff like that. There are those moments, but I think, for the sake of telling a good story and having nostalgia, I think they should have picked telling a good story, and they should have skipped Luigi's Mansion altogether. You tell a good story, you have a good storyline, good plot points, good character development, then you're going to make a sequel. Then you're going to make a spinoff. So, I don't know. Anyways, hopefully the next one has Waluigi and Wario. I'm looking forward to that. That would be really cool. I wonder who they're going to cast for that. I don't know. I guess the last thing is their accents. I think Chris Pratt did say in an interview that he didn't want to do the accent because they didn't want it to portray that. I don't think Mario and Luigi were supposed to be Italian. They just happened to become Italian. And I mean, you just grow to love the accent, you just hear it so much and you expect it. It's not, I think it passed the point of being cringy. I think at some point it probably, reached that teenager stage where they're cringy, and then it just kind of aged like fine wine, and then you just expect it to happen. It didn't happen. And, a lot of the other characters there didn't have those accents. And so it would have really separated them, having a Brooklyn, New York accent, being in this other land where people don't have accents or don't have thick accents and, very noticeable, very different. If everybody sounds the same or sounds very similar in their dialect, I think that could have definitely added to the idea of them being from another world versus them being from the same world, is because of such a separation of dialect. And it could have even been funny if Peach doesn't understand something Mario says because he's, getting butterflies or something, or the Toads don't understand what he says and somebody has to translate. Maybe that could have been Keegan-Michael Key's character's, Toad. It could have been one of the things that he does is he helps translate because he's so adventurous that he's willing to learn. He's very quick to learn dialects and stuff because he's maybe had to do that in the past. I don't know. But anyways, those are my thoughts, guys. Tell me what you think in the comments if you watch this long. I don't know. I'm not a good movie reviewer. We don't watch movies very often, like in theaters and stuff. But, this one definitely, I had a lot of thoughts on this. But I'm going to give this one a 6.5 out of 10. Let me know what you agree with, if you disagree, if you really liked it, if you didn't like it, like parts of it, didn't like parts of it. I don't know. You let me know, and I'm willing to check them out in the comments for sure. All right, thanks, and I'll see you on the flip side. Deuces.